Not that much. Community partners too. Good. Great. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Come on over here with Are we ready? Everybody set up? Let's go. Good morning. Thank you for coming this morning. My name is James P. Walsh. I'm the Pinal County Attorney. The reason we're having this press conference this morning is very important for the health and public safety of the citizens of Pinal County. We have a problem, a serious problem, here and throughout Arizona. It's a problem with something that people are now calling novelty powders, synthetic drugs. They go under a lot of different names. K2, spice, bath salts. They're dangerous. They're deadly. And they need to be removed from the shelves of stores in Pinal County. And that's what this group is here to do. I want to tell you about who's here. I want to tell you about how we're going to do it. I want to tell you about why we're going to do it. I have behind me representatives of law enforcement from throughout the county, chiefs of police, officers and police organizations from the cities of Apache Junction, Kearney, Eloy. I'm going to leave somebody out if I don't turn around. Coolidge, and I have community partners from the anti-drug coalitions in Casa Grande, in the Santan Valley, in Coolidge, and also representing our countywide Anti-Substance Abuse Council. We also have with us today the special agent in charge of the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, Doug Coleman, all of who will be available for questions, but in particular Mr. Coleman, I want to talk about him a little bit later in this press conference. For many years, but in increasing numbers, the substances that we're talking about here, novelty powders, have been sold through smoke shops, some convenience stores, gas stations, trading posts, and other outlets in all parts of Arizona. The legislature, working with prosecutors, have tried to make some of these substances illegal and criminal because they are harmful. As I say, they mimic and imitate the effects of drugs such as methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, but they do so in even a stronger fashion. The effort to do it at the legislature meets with temporary success when we're able to get a substance banned, but then the chemists with the bad guys change that substance and it's no longer criminal. That happened earlier this year when Governor Brewer signed a bill outlawing a particular formulation of bath salts. And by the time that law enforcement in Yavapai County went around and checked the shops, took the substances called bath salts off the shelf, had them analyzed, none of them fit the illegal formulation. And so those substances remained on the shelves. We know those substances are out there in Pinal County as well. And we know that they can harm people and that they're harming people today. So we're taking a page out of what they did in Yavapai County. First, we're going to give these retail outlets an opportunity to be good citizens. We're going to say, why don't you sign a community participation agreement? You have a copy of one there before you. Sign a community participation agreement. Show that you care about the citizens and the people that use your business. Take these substances off the shelves. And we're going to meet with success in doing that. They got over half of the outlets in Yavapai County to sign that agreement when they brought it around. But if you don't want to sign the agreement, we're going to give you a notice. And the notice says, you're selling something that's harmful to the public. You're selling something that imitates illegal drugs. And it is a public nuisance. And this is your notice, that if you're not going to sign their participation agreement, you're going to meet me in court. Because we're going to go after you on a public nuisance ground, just like they did in Yavapai County. And we're going to get an injunction against the sale of that substance here in Pinal County. Now, this week is important because we've started. We send out to our law enforcement partners throughout the county, including the Pinal County Narcotics Task Force, who couldn't be with us today, the documents that are going to be brought to these stores. And I know they've already been bringing these to the stores. In fact, I know here in Apache Junction, they have met with some very immediate success. 6 of the 7 outlets that we know were selling these substances immediately signed up, and they're going to take the substances off their shelves. And we're going to make sure that they live up to their agreement. But I want to congratulate those stores for recognizing the fact that what they were doing was harming the community, and for taking the right step in removing it from the shelves. But down the road, there may be some that hold out. And if they want to hold out, we'll see them in court. And we're preparing a court suit like no one has seen in this county to go after a public nuisance. Let me tell you what happened in Yavapai County. And I'm going to read you from the preliminary injunction, which is also available to you. By the way, these synthetic drugs have a technical name. They're called cannabinoids and cathinones. And when we get an injunction, it's not going to be just against K2 or one of the brand names. It's going to be against these type of drugs. These are what is known in the federal side as analog drugs. Here's what the judge said in Yavapai County. The evidence shows that users will often suffer long-term effects from the drugs, such as psychosis, insomnia, and self-mutilation. Evidence was presented showing synthetic cannabinoids and cathinones may be even more addictive than marijuana or methamphetamine. Parents describe children who transform from well-behaved youths to psychotic, paranoid children who lie and steal to continue their dangerous drug habit. Evidence was presented that patients report to emergency rooms due to ingestion of synthetic cannabinoids and cathinones with dangerously high heart rates, blood pressure, and body temperature. Patients under the influence of synthetic cannabinoids and cathinones are violently combative, out of their minds. They violently attack paramedics, doctors, and nurses. So we know the effects of these, and we know that those effects are happening today. In fact, we are, just as in Yavapai County, collecting evidence from the probation department, emergency rooms in our hospitals and medical facilities, from law enforcement, from school personnel, that show the dangerous effects that these substances are having in Pinal County. We will have that evidence ready when we file suit later this year, when we find out those who don't want to sign up. I'd be real happy if we got 100% participation and everybody signed up, but I'm not sure we will. And I want to tell the people of Pinal County today, if you have any stories, any anecdotes, any evidence that could help us get this substance off the shelves, please contact your local anti-drug coalition. There are 8 of them throughout the county, as well as the countywide substance abuse coalition. You have law enforcement in each of your towns. Let them know. We want that evidence to be solid when we go to court to knock out anybody who doesn't want to agree voluntarily. You have the copy of the notice. You have the copy of the participation agreement. You know what they did in Yavapai County. The judge finally in Yavapai County made a finding, and I'll read that finding because we're giving this to all the retailers. Synthetic cannabinoids and cathinones have been shown to cause life-threatening medical conditions for those that ingest them, and the aggressive and violent behavior caused by these novelty powder drugs constitute a threat of serious physical harm to emergency medical personnel, law enforcement personnel, and the public at large. Juveniles living in the county are particularly at risk as they are not yet mature enough to understand and appreciate the danger posed by these novelty powder drugs, yet are able to obtain them legally from retail defendants. A tremendous amount of resources from the medical, law enforcement, mental health, and public education fields is being diverted to address the health and public safety issues created by the sale of these substances. We will have these same findings in Pinal County when we go to court. I want to particularly thank the City of Apache Junction for letting us use this facility for this important announcement to the public today. I also want to congratulate them. 5 years ago, we began an important partnership with the Drug Enforcement Administration here in Pinal County. Before that time, people hadn't really come up with the important idea of getting prescription drugs out of folks' homes. And with the cooperation of the DEA, we were able to start a prescription drug turn-in program. We did it at community festivals and many scheduled events. But the city of Apache Junction was the first city in Pinal County to actually establish a turn-in facility right here at the, I think it's right here at the police station, is it not, Kevin? Yeah, right here at the police station. Now every other city has really followed suit with that, and it's because of that cooperation. Doug Coleman, the special agent in charge of Drug Enforcement Administration in Arizona, can answer questions about why is it so important to a federal agency to work with us locally. They work with us locally in Yavapai County. They're going to work with us here in Pinal County. Why do they want to help us? And they were tremendous help. They were tremendous help in getting that injunction. Their agents were helpful in both developing the testimony, analyzing the substances, and putting affidavits into court and testifying at the time of the hearing. So I was very pleased that Agent Coleman could be with us today, and he will be available to answer questions. And I may direct some of your questions to some of the other participants because I know they've all been working hard. We've had a working group working at this in my office for about 2 months, ever since we found out about what they were doing up in Yavapai County. 2 of my chief deputies went up to observe that case and begin to formulate our pattern for doing it here. So this is something that's been in the works for a while. With that, I think I can take questions.
Why are you going about this using a public nuisance law as opposed to, say, creating a city ordinance?
That's a very good question. And there are some cities that are considering adopting an ordinance of this sort. I think the city of Coolidge has discussed it. I know up in Yavapai County, I think the city of Cottonwood was thinking about doing it. And I think that's fine. I think we ought to have a multi-level approach. We're doing this because we know it's effective. We know it worked in Yavapai County. Not only that, but we have the benefit of how they did it. It took them approximately 7 or 8 months to get to the point where they got a temporary restraining order. We're going to be able to do it much quicker because we can benefit from the work they did and how they did it. So we're doing this because we think it may be quicker than waiting for cities to adopt that. The other thing I think that I don't want to leave out is we're not going to stop by just getting an injunction here in Pinal County. The Arizona Prosecutors Association has supported other state legislation to try to combat this, and we will do so again during this coming legislative session. And we hope maybe to get something like the federal analog statute that would not only get it off shelves, but make these dangerous substances criminal.
These things are called novelties. How, and yet it's been proven that they are dangerous. How have they managed to slip through the cracks, if you will, and are available so easily?
You know, the beauty of chemistry. Now, the origin of these really is an interesting story. I won't give you the whole thing. But in essence, a researcher who was trying to find out the effects of marijuana was not able to obtain the marijuana because it was illegal for him to do so. So he created a synthetic form of marijuana. And when it was found that it really had the effects of marijuana, it became commercial. And, you know, this was developed in labs and probably legally, first of all, for medical purposes, and then illegally. I don't know if anybody ever legally tried to create a methamphetamine substitute, but it was done that way, and then it was found to be so commercially successful. The profits that these stores make is astronomical. These substances are developed for pennies, and you'll find them for sale for $20 and $30 for a substance in a little vial. The commercial profit is what drives this. That's why if we can get them off the shelf, I think this thing is going to collapse.
So is the hope in a bigger picture that you can make any type of this drug or whatever it's being called just as illegal as known drugs?
Right. If it has the same effect as a drug that is illegal, as cocaine, as heroin, as methamphetamine, then it shouldn't be legal to sell it just because it has a different chemical composition. Those drugs are illegal because of the harm they do to us individually and the harm they do to society. these do the same and greater harm because, as the court found in Yavapai County, they are even stronger and more addictive.
So it's kind of like you're setting a precedence here, you're kind of taking the lead on this and trying to lead by example, if you will, for the rest of the nation.
You bet. I don't know of any other state that has tried this, but I think we are a leader in Arizona in doing this, and we certainly are a leader here in Pinal County.
Do you know of any other counties that are thinking about implementing a similar program?
I think there are several counties that are thinking about it. I haven't heard anybody particularly this far along. I know that different counties have different issues. A county, for example, as large as Pima County or Maricopa will have hundreds of outlets. And how they approach that will be different than how we approach it here in the smaller county, where we think we're probably going to have even less than what they have in Yavapai County, maybe 30 to 35 outlets. As I said, we have 6 of 7 stores have already agreed at Apache Junction. The 7th store, I think, is leaning. And I think basically, when we get those agreements, we have at least removed those outlets within the city of Apache Junction to be available to young people. So I know I've talked to the county attorney in Maricopa County. They're working with municipalities, and I think they're going to be finding a way to do something very similar. We're not going to give these people a safe haven anywhere in the state of Arizona.
And how are the local police participating?
Well, what we did earlier this week, first of all, in these working group meetings, we've had representatives from several of the police departments, and particularly a representative from the Apache Junction Police Department who was working with DEA on assignment in Yavapai County. He was there, he saw how it was done. We developed the notices and the community participation agreement so they would fit our circumstances. Earlier this week, we sent those notices and participation agreements to each of the police departments, asked them to please have officers serve these, bring these to the retail outlets and see how many would agree, and if not, give them the notice, show them the preliminary injunction. And so that's why we decided to make this announcement this week, because we've begun the program. And as I said, in Apache Junction, I don't have results from any of the other cities yet, but in Apache Junction, it started off very successful.
So all the cities are on board at this point?
All the cities that have any of the, all the cities obviously that are here, everybody in law enforcement is on board with this. We in law enforcement know how dangerous these things are. We run into it. Officers run into it. They know it is dangerous that when somebody is out there on this substance, either whether they're committing a crime or just endangering the rest of the community by the way they're behaving, the way they're driving, and everything else. So law enforcement is totally on board with this. Not every city has an outlet, as far as we know yet, but we hope to find out if people know of any that hear this announcement this morning. Please let us know.
Santan Valley is one of the most populous parts of Pinal County. It's not incorporated, and so the Pinal County Sheriff's Office patrols that area. Are they on board as well?
Yes, the Pinal County Narcotics Task Force has attended our working group sessions. They were invited this morning. Apparently they weren't able to come, but they were sent the notices. They're just as concerned about this, I think, as anybody else in law enforcement, and I'm sure they're on board.
Do you know how effective this was in Navajo County? Have they actually seen a decrease in the use of these synthetic drugs?
Well, I think they will have, because half of them already, half of the outlets were already agreeing some time ago. But until you get something that gets them all knocked out, I'm not sure you'll see some kind of a decrease. And the preliminary injunction I read to you was entered approximately a month ago on September 17th. So I think that they'll be going back to check on some of those results. And of course, one of the problems until we can really address this on a statewide basis is that somebody could be buying this substance somewhere else, using it in Yavapai County or Pinal County. So we have to really have a total effort, but it's good to start someplace, and it's important to start now.
Is there a possible education program that you guys want to kick off? Because there are some people who might think synthetic, it's not a real drug, I can have all the bells and whistles without the danger.
Look, as I mentioned before, we have a number of coalitions at the local level throughout this county. You mentioned Santan Valley. Santan Valley has a very strong coalition, and there's 2 representatives of Santan Valley here today. All of these coalitions are engaged in that education process. And as a countywide council, the Pinal County Substance Abuse Council is engaged in that education process. And frankly, what we're doing today is part of that education process. We need to make sure that people do understand that. And we do work with the schools as well to make sure that this information gets out. Cindy, is there anything that the coalition members want to say about that?
Well, we have we're cooperating with the Not My Kid program, which we brought into the Santan Valley schools this fall, and we have 15 schools who are getting presentations for adults, for faculty, and for students this fall and this school year. So this information, this education is available to them through that Not My Kid program.
Great.
It's based in Scottsdale.
Yeah, thank you very much.
How prevalent is this problem?
Well, it's prevalent everywhere you can buy this substance and where people go in and take it, ingest it, and use it. So I think it's prevalent everywhere in this county. And even if there isn't an outlet where I live in my town, in the town of Oracle, people are going to get it somewhere else, and they're going to endanger the people in that town. So it's available in outlets throughout the state as well. That's why we're trying to knock it out at the state level. But we got to take steps along the way to protect the people that we're charged with protecting where we work.
Has it always been an issue to this extent, we just never heard about it, or is it actually becoming worse?
I think it's becoming worse. I was talking to Agent Coleman beforehand, and Doug, would you add anything to that in terms of the prevalence of this, and maybe you want to say something about whether it's getting worse?
Thank you. My name is Doug Coleman. I'm the Special Agent in charge of DEA in Arizona. A couple things first. I want to thank the county attorney for what he's doing. DEA will support any local law enforcement initiative that goes along these lines to try to stop this before we have to intervene on in an investigative level. One thing I will say about these bath salts, make no mistake, the people who are selling them know what they're being used for, and they know how they're being distributed, and they know what's going on. So there's no innocent defense here. I applaud the county attorney and the local law enforcement leaders here for asking them to stop, because if they don't stop, they can count on the fact that we as DEA will be looking for them. Along the lines of what the county attorney talked about with the prevalence of bath salts and synthetic cannabinoids, last 3 years, significant increase nationwide in the abuse of these drugs. They were kind of an underground drug before, but like any type of drug, when the word gets out on what they are and how you can use them, there will be somebody to try to meet that demand. So the locations that sold the bath salts and the synthetic cannabinoids, which is K2 or Spice, began to expand their business. The people that would manufacture this illegally began to expand their business, and word of mouth, like any drug, got out amongst the young people that are using it. So in the last 3 years, we've had a significant increase nationwide in the abuse of these drugs.
Where are they manufactured? Where are these drugs coming from? Is it the United States? Is it a foreign country, et cetera?
Yeah, synthetic drugs like methamphetamine can be manufactured with a mix of chemicals. So all they have to do is buy what are commercially available chemicals, a variety of different ones, mix them together, and in the case of the cannabinoids, they spray them on a plant material. In the case of the bath salts, they mix them up and cook them up like you do methamphetamine. So the chemicals that are utilized to manufacture the drugs are legitimate and available, but when you mix them all together, that's when you come up with the controlled substance. So to answer your question, they're being manufactured in the United States.
Thanks. Any other questions?
I wonder about the penalties. Let's say you get an injunction and a store violates that. What are the penalties that are in place?
Well, I mean, I don't have the permanent injunction in front of me, and they probably said some in there, but you're subject to court order. You can be held in contempt if you violate an injunction. I'm sure that we would try to put some kind of potential dollar value on some of these violations. We certainly know that it's, as I read to you from the injunction, it is costly to many of our institutions, medical facilities, law enforcement, school facilities. The resources they divert because of these things are causing actual economic damage. How we quantify that to the court, I'll tell you when we get ready to seek the permanent injunction.